and welcome to Music 101. Music 101 is created to empower music itself, and legendary icon in the music industry. Another week, another great episode. The Ian Hunter Connection, mapping the rock and roll network, RIP 2025 Part 3.
Yes, this is it. Rest in peace. The series in both part one and part two has been about those musical luminaries who have left us during 2025. However, since we emphasize the positive, we don't dwell on negativity, and we'll celebrate the musical contributions of those artists who are no longer among the living. The first part of this series pointed out the Ian Hunter connection, who is fortunately still among us, yet he has been connected to several artists who passed on during 2025. We are mapping the rock and roll network.
Indeed, mapping itself. So, Mr. Mac, with the recent passing of Mick Rolfs, can you introduce him to fans or those who might want to be?
It don't come easy, and that's a nod to Ringo Starr, of course. And it ain't easy when you fall. With the passing of Mick Ralph's Ralpher for fans, the Ian Hunter song has a double meaning. In the competitive but other times easygoing manner between bandmates and musicians, the Ian Hunter Mick Ralph's collaboration stands out. As a guitarist, Ralph's was never flashy. Nonetheless, when Mott the Hoople formed in 1969, Ralphs would remain a member of the band and feature on their first six albums. And with this, finally, Ralphs had songs like Can't Get Enough and Moving On, which were never used with Mott because Ian Hunter couldn't sing them. And from there, Ralphs left Mott the Hoople in 1973, shortly after the band achieved their commercial breakthrough with the Bowie penned All the Young Dudes hit. And from there, Bad Company's 1974 self titled debut album was an instant hit, going five times platinum, backed by the Ralph's Penn single, Can't Get Enough. But Mick was not done, and he revamped Mott's Ready for Love. During Ralph's tenure with Bad Company, in addition to these two hit songs, the group released more hits. Can't Get Enough, which would be their biggest hit single, reaching at number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100. Their self-titled debut album, in 1974, was their only number one album on the Billboard 200, but number 3 in the UK. Bad Company and together their follow-up, 1975, Straight Shooter, was also a hit, going to number 3 on the album charts in both the Billboard Hot 100 in the US and the UK albums chart. Its opening track, Good Lovin' Gone Bad, written by Ralphs, reached its highest chart position at number 36 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the US and was also a top 40 hit in the UK. The group disbanded after the release of Rough Diamonds 1982, with Ralphs commenting, Bad Company had become bigger than all of us, and to continue would have destroyed someone or something. Bad Company reformed in 1986 with Brian Howe as lead vocalist. Mick Ralphs was part of that lineup, serving as lead guitarist from 1986 to 1999. This reformed lineup with Brian Howe went on to achieve additional success, including the platinum certified Holy Water. Outside the group, Ralphs released the solo albums Take This 1984, It's All Good 2001, and That's Life 2003. In the 21st century, assorted iterations of Bad Company featuring Ralphs touring in Britain and the US in 2009 and 2010. He also made two albums with the Mick Ralphs Blues Band, I Should Have Known Better 2013 and If It Ain't Broke 2016. Also in 1984, he was a part of David Gilmour's touring band promoting Gilmour's solo album About Face. He became friendly with George Harrison. They were neighbors in Henley on Thames, and they co wrote the song Flying Hour. And with this, we also can start thinking about what kind of heartfelt tributes could come his way. And of course, Ian Hunter recorded one recalling Mick Ralphs with warmth and camaraderie after his passing. In conclusion, you can learn more about Ralphs with Ian Hunter, which is available in my volume, On Track Ian Hunter. It's available on Amazon.
Mr. Meg, let's move to the legendary Peter, Paul, and Mary Falk group. Can you introduce the three song and Peter Yarrow, who passed away?
Peter, Paul, and Mary stood as towering figures in American music, blending soaring harmonies with poignant messages that transcended their genre. Chip Monk, the voice of Woodstock and lighting director extraordinaire, began his foray into the folk scene, which involved him with Bob Dylan and Peter, Paul, and Mary shows. The trio's first album was a commercial success with numerous well known songs, reaching number 14 on the Billboard 200 chart. It peaked at number 2 on the Billboard Folk Albums chart. One notable track from the album included If I Had a Hammer, a traditional folk song that became a hit single, reaching the top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. Another song is Where Have All the Flowers Gone, a traditional folk song that became a classic of the folk genre. The song was a huge hit for Peter, Paul, and Mary, reaching number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart and staying on the chart for 14 weeks. Wedding Song, There Is Love, is a beautiful and poignant song written by Noel Paul Stookey. The album reached number 1 on the Billboard charts and remained there for an astounding 7 weeks. Lemon Tree is a traditional folk song that tells the story of a man who is pining for his lost love and the lemon tree that serves as a symbol of their relationship. 500 Miles tells the story of a man who is traveling 500 miles to be with his love and features a catchy melody and harmonies. Puff the Magic Dragon is a whimsical, bittersweet tune that became a cultural touchstone. It was a commercial success, reaching number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. Peter, Paul, and Mary's version of Blowin' in the Wind is a cover of the classic song written by Bob Dylan. The song was a huge hit for the trio, reaching number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart and staying in the chart for 14 weeks. Leaving on a Jet Plane is a song written by John Denver and recorded by Peter, Paul, and Mary. The song was a huge hit for the trio, reaching number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart and staying on the chart for 14 weeks. An anti war song protesting Lyndon Johnson's Vietnam fiasco is Cruel War. In a different vein, in the late 1960s, they recorded I Dig Rock and Roll Music, proving that their music was enduring. In conclusion, rest in harmony, Peter Yarrow, your light shines on in the music and in the love you inspired.
Indeed. Indeed, Mr. Max. So, what can we relate about soulful sounds of Roberta Flack?
Her breakthrough came in 1972 when Clint Eastwood featured her rendition of The First Time I Ever Saw Your Face in his film Play Misty for Me. The song, originally released on her debut album First Take 1969, soared to number 1 on the Billboard charts, winning her a Grammy for a Record of the Year. This was just the beginning. Flack followed up with 2 more number 1 hits, Killing Me Softly with his song in 73 and Feel Like Making Love 74. With her close friend and collaborator Donny Hathaway, she created enduring duets like Where Is the Love and The Closer I Get to You. Her signature song, Killing Me Softly, found a new generation of listeners when the Fugees reimagined it in the 1990s, bringing her music back to the top of the charts. Flack possessed what I call interpretive courage. Take The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face, originally recorded by Ewan MacCowell and Peggy Seeger. Lori Lieberman attended a Don McLean concert in 1971 and wrote a poem about how McLean's performance made her feel. Lieberman co-wrote and recorded the first version of Killing Me Softly with his song. Flack was especially renowned for her collaboration with Donny Hathaway. In conclusion, her collaboration with Maxi Priest on Set the Night to Music showed how she could embrace reggae influences without abandoning her interpretive approach.
Definitely. So, Mr. Mac, still in a similar vein, how about Sly Stone, who dared to challenge James Brown and paint the 60s with the psychedelic soul?
Well, an early song by Sly Stone, Poet, seems overlooked, and it opens the LP a whole new thing. And though it never touched the charts, it quietly declares Sly's intention. What grabs me today is how prophetic the lyrics are. My only weapon is my pen, and the first ever live recording from 1967 is now available. If Poet was the whisper, Dance to the Music was the shout heard round the world. That was in 68, and that gem hit the Billboard Hot 100 at number 8. Sly slipped into a satire of commercial music that became a massive hit anyway. The brilliance of Dance of the Music is its self awareness. The lyrics tell you what the band is doing. How is it possible that Milady 1968 didn't chart? But it didn't. Even the experimenter Sly released Life in 1968, and Sing a Simple Song from 1968 is a track that's pure groove wrapped in a deceptively straightforward package. Sing a Simple Song wasn't simple. It carved a path, hitting number 28 on the Billboard R&B singles chart and bubbling under the Hot 100 at number 89. You could argue that Everyday People is the one that crystallizes Sly's entire philosophy, musical and personal, in under 3 minutes. Released as a lead single from their 1968 album Stand, it rocketed to number one on the Billboard Hot 100 in February 1969, holding the top spot for 4 weeks. It also hit number one on the Billboard R&B singles chart. Stand from 1969 is a track that's both a rallying cry and a gospel funk soul masterpiece. And with that, he climbed to number 22 on the Billboard Hot 100, hit number 14 on the Billboard R&B singles chart. I Want to Take You Higher from 1969, a track that's less a song and more a sonic rocket, blasting you into a state of pure, unfiltered euphoria. It hit number 60 on the Billboard Hot 100 and reached number 24 on the Billboard R&B singles chart. The crowd singing and chanting higher back at the band, 400,000 strong at Woodstock, was a defining moment for the band. Jeff Beck, who also appeared on E. Hunter's song The Third Rail, recorded a 2016 version of Sly's comeback album, I'm Back, Family and Friends. Hot Fun in the Summertime soared to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 3 on the R&B singles chart. And with that, Somebody's Watching You from 1969 is a lesser known but potent track from their iconic Stand album. Don't Call Me N-Word Nigger. In 1969, the Black Power movement went into hyperdrive after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, and Sly was right on it. Controversial song, but interesting where Sly was at that time. You Can Make It If You Tries from the 1969 album Stand. And the bass revolution, Larry Graham, who played in the band, invented slap bass on Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself Again. Released in December 1969 as a single and later included on their 1970s Greatest Hits album. And with that, it hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in February 1970, holding the top spot for 2 weeks. It also claimed number 1 on the R&B singles chart. It's the last pure moment before Sly fully descends into the chaos of There's a Riot Going On. That was the band when they released Time from that album. The band was fracturing, addiction was gnawing at everyone. Family Affair, though, is a standout from that album. And the drum machine, the Maestro Rhythm King, is cold, mechanical, like a heartbeat in a padded room. First time it hit any chart song and was topping the charts at the time. Chart-wise, Family Affair was a triumph. It hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart for 3 weeks and topped the R&B singles chart. In conclusion, Sly's music holds up a mirror to the 1960s and 1970s, bright, colorful, wild, and hopeful.
Wild indeed. So, Mr. Mac, what happens when a 20-year-old surfer dude decide to turn the recording studio to an orchestra pit?
So, one of America's greatest songwriters and composers of what he called teenage symphonies to God, Brian Wilson invented a massively successful sound full of harmonies and sunshine. One of his best can be considered God Only Knows. Wilson's legacy includes a chock full of hits with the Beach Boys, including 3 number 1 singles, I Get Around, Help Me Rhonda, and Good Vibrations. And on albums such as Pet Sounds, Wilson's lavish orchestral production techniques dramatically expanded the sonic palette of rock and roll and introduced the concept of using the recording studio as an instrument by itself. In 1961, Wilson recorded Surfin' under the group handle The Beach Boys. Though it rose no higher than number 75 nationally, the tune became a radio hit in Los Angeles and gave the young band a commercial toehold. In 1962, the Beach Boys were signed to Capitol Records on the strength of their new demos, including the new surf album anthem, Surfin' Safari. The song became a two-sided hit with its A-side reaching number 20, and it prefaced a long run of like-themed smashes. The biggest hits of 1963 to 64 included a number one pop single, I Get Around, and the top 10 45s, Surfin' USA, Surfer Girl, Fun, 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 When I Grow Up to Be a Man, and Dance, Dance, Dance. Six of their albums reached the top 10, with the live set Beach Boys Concert hitting number one. The string of hits proliferated with Surfin' USA, with music borrowed, of course, from Chuck Berry's Sweet Little 16, Surfer Girl, Be True to Your School, and others. And Be True to Your School was quite successful commercially, peaking at number 6 on the Billboard's Hot Top 100 chart in December 15th, 1963, and spending 12 weeks on the chart. It was the Beach Boys' third top 10 record in 1963. Be True to Your School is actually available in two different versions, and the song was released as a double A-side single back with In My Room, and both tracks were successful. While Be True to Your School hit number 6, In My Room peaked at number 23. The lonesome In My Room is expressed non-verbally with the Beach Boys' highly achingly beautiful multi-part harmonies. From 1962 to 1966, the Beach Boys totaled 10 top 10 hits and 7 more top 40 chart entries for Capitol Records, most of them written or co-written and produced by Wilson. The Beach Boys immediately come to mind as having been at the forefront of the 1960s hot rod fad with 8 car songs. The Beach Boys' love of car culture peaked with 1963's Little Deuce Coupe. They also released Shut Down Volume 2 with Fun, 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 and In the Parking Lot, This Car of Mine, Shut Down Part 2, Custom Machine, No Go Showboat, Car Crazy Cutie, Cherry Cherry Coupe, and A Young Man Is Gone. Fun, Fun, Fun summarizes 60s teenage rebellious innocence back before that meant Woodstock, peace, love, long hair, and LSD. The hit was number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1964. Shut Down is a bit racier, no pun intended, but it's a play-by-play street racing tale. Our Car Club is a picture of American graffiti movie life and a song during the early 60s innocence. Ballad of Old Betsy is a sentimental tribute to a second Deuce Coupe. Spirit of America is about Bonneville's salt flats, land speed records, and one of the quickest cars who ever test the salt flats. In My Car comes from an album of movie songs. The Still Cruisin' album would go gold and would be the last for the Beach Boys on Capitol Records. Wilson experimented with new songs in the studio as the chunky surf guitar and falsetto lead on I Get Around. The band toured heavily and drained Wilson's energy, and he decided not to tour anymore. Although Today in 1965 marked a shift, and the hits continued in 1965 with the singles Help Me Rhonda, which went to number 1, California Girls, number 3, Barbara Ann, number 2, and the latter drawn from the live in the studio set, Beach Boys Party, which went to number 6. The LP had followed a pair of albums, The Beach Boys Today, number 4, and Summer Days and Summer Nights, number 2. And with that, the development by the band continued with Don't Worry Baby in 1964. It was released as the B-side to I Get Around. It was during what many consider their first creative leap forward. Though it fared no better than number 32 on the charts, Caroline No was the first released effort from Pet Sounds. The results included gorgeous singles such as California Girls and the immortal 1966 album Pet Sounds. California Girls peaked at number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart, and the UK it peaked at number 26. Pet Sounds, which regularly ranks at or near the top of the best albums ever made, Rolling Stone named it number 2 in its list of 500 greatest albums of all time, was inspired by the Beatles' innovative work on Rubber Soul. The LP inspired the Fab Four to new heights of experimentation on Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Pet Sounds peaked at number 10 on the Billboard chart and quickly slipped away, but in Britain, he attained number 2 on the UK albums chart and stayed in the top 20 for over 30 weeks. God Only Knows placed number 11 on the Rolling Stones list of the 500 greatest songs of all time. There is a snippet, 50 seconds of unreleased music from the Pet Sounds session, and magically, Brian begins singing at a family event. The culmination was Wouldn't It Be Nice, with its lyrics yearning to grow into adulthood and love. Wouldn't It Be Nice hit number 8, and Sloop John B hit number 3. Wilson followed up with the Beach Boys' finest single, Good Vibrations, at that point, the most expensive single in history at that time. It climbed to number 1 in late 1966. Although by that time, Brian was so out of touch, he writes about it on I Just Wasn't Made for These Times. Wilson returned with a solo LP entitled Smile, a Teenage Symphony to God. Mrs. O'Leary's Cow, a piece of the Elements suite about fire. Wilson handed out plastic firemen's helmets to the orchestra and actually lit a fire in the studio to inspire them. It was considered the great lost rock album, and although songs including Heroes and Villains, number 12 in 1967, and Surf's Up, later the title song on a 1971 LP, had made their way piecemeal onto Beach Boys albums. Example of his genius, of course, is in the song Darlin'. Wilson's Smile landed later on Rolling Stone's list of the 500 greatest albums of all time. In 2004, Mrs. O'Leary's Cow won Best Rock Instrumental Performance. In conclusion, Brian Wilson was one of the preeminent members of the rock elite who forged 1960s pop music to make it a respectable art form.
Very well said, Mr. Mick. And at roughly the same time as the Beach Boys, Connie Francis was in her heyday. What can you tell us about her career?
Her groundbreaking career in the late 1950s and early 1960s deserves way more recognition than it gets. Let me start with the obvious. Some of our younger listeners might know Pretty Little Baby actually from TikTok. The idea of a young woman commanding the pop charts and building a multimedia empire at the time was virtually unheard of. By age 9, she was appearing on major TV shows like Arthur Godfrey's Talent Scouts. Her breakthrough came with Who's Sorry Now, an old 1923 ballad that her father insisted she record. Initially released in late 1957, it seemed destiny for obscurity until Dick Clark played it on American Bandstand in early 1958. The song rocketed to number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100, making Francis one of the first solo female artists to achieve such massive chart success in the rock and roll era. But this wasn't a fluke. It was the beginning of a 7-year chart domination that would see her accumulate more top 10 hits than any other woman in her era. The star-making machinery was incredibly centralized, with shows like American Bandstand, The Ed Sullivan Show, and The Perry Como Show serving as the primary gatekeepers for national success. If Dick Clark or Ed Sullivan didn't embrace you, your chances of breaking through nationally were virtually zero. With this, though, musically, the era was characterized by what we might call safe rebellion. Teen culture was just beginning to emerge as a distinct market force, and the recording technology of the era also shaped the sound. Doris Day was probably the biggest female name in entertainment, but she was primarily a movie star whose recording career supported her film work. Her biggest hits like Que Sera, Sera were tied to movie soundtracks, and her image was that of the wholesome girl next door. Definitely not a rock and roll rebel. Patti Page has massive success with Tennessee Waltz and other country-influenced pop songs, but again, her appeal was largely to adult audiences, and she didn't have the multimedia presence that Francis developed. Brenda Lee, who was actually younger than Francis, had some success with a rocking song like Sweet Nothings and later I'm Sorry, but her career trajectory was much more limited. What made Frances different was her combination of teen appeal with sophisticated artistry. She could record a song like Lipstick on Your Collar that appealed to teenagers while also tackling more mature material like Among My Souvenirs that showcased genuine vocal sophistication. The statistics surrounding Connie Francis's chart performance read like a masterclass in pop dominance. Between 1964 and 1957 and 1964, she placed an astounding 35 songs in the Billboard Hot 100, with 15 reaching the top 10. To put this in perspective, during the same period, most established male artists were celebrating having half that number of hits. Let's break down her golden years. 1958 alone would constitute a career-defining year for most artists. My Happiness reached number 2. After this song, her next release, Stupid Cupid, hit number 14. Not only that, but its B side, Carolina Moon, charted at number 12. The song was so popular, it actually did better in the UK and it was a number one hit. This was a remake of a 1929 song by Gene Austen. Connie was getting multiple hits from single releases, which was incredibly rare. In 1959, brought Lipstick on Your Collar to number 5. The song anticipates the 1960s bubblegum genre of hits. Her song, Among My Souvenirs, reached number 7 with a tune that appealed to both teenagers and adults. But 1960 was when Frances achieved what no solo female artist had done before. She claimed the number one spot on the Billboard Hot 100 not once, but twice. Everybody's Somebody's Fool held the top position for 2 weeks in June. The hit was followed by My Heart Has a Mind of Its Own for another 2 weeks in September. Even as taste began shifting, she maintained excellence through 1962 with another hit like Don't Break the Heart That Loves You, her third number one. Then Secondhand Love hit number 7. She also released Vacation, which hit number 9. Her final tally, 3 number one songs, 15 top 10 hits, and 35 Hot 100 entries over 7 years. Frances's revolutionary impact lies in how she fundamentally redefined what it meant to be a female entertainer, establishing templates that we still see in pop stardom today. First, she was a multimedia pioneer decades before that term existed. She didn't just make records, she built an empire. Her films like Where the Boys Are and Follow the Boys weren't celebrity cameos. These were starring roles that showcased her acting abilities alongside her musical talents, proving female artists could successfully transition between media platforms. Frances's professional achievements came at tremendous personal cost. The most devastating example involves her relationship with Bobby Darin. Frances and Darin were both teen idols, both successful artists, and genuinely in love with plans to marry. But when her father heard rumors about their engagement, he literally stormed into a rehearsal and pulled a gun on Darin, ending their relationship immediately. The TikTok revival of Pretty Little Baby represents one of the most fascinating examples of how music transcends generational boundaries. The song was originally released in 1962 during Frances's peak period, but it didn't achieve significant chart success, likely because she had already released several major hits that year and the market was saturated with her material. But in 2024, something magical happened. The song started appearing on TikTok with users drawn to its infectious melody and nostalgic production quality. Connie Frances's legacy extends far beyond impressive statistics to the fundamental changes she brought to popular music, and her influence on contemporary artists is more significant than most people realize. Every female pop star operating in today's environment, where women regularly dominate charts and control their artistic destinies, is building on foundations that Frances established. If this inspired you in this episode to explore Frances's music, start with those revolutionary early hits. Who's Sorry Now, Everybody's Somebody's Fool, Where the Boys Are, and My Heart Has a Mind of Its Own. In conclusion, these songs showcase Connie at her barrier-breaking best and definitely give Pretty Little Baby a listen. You'll immediately understand why it captured TikTok's attention and why Frances's emotional honesty continues to resonate with new generations.
Very well said. Very well said, Mr. Meg. So, how can we wrap up this Rest in Peace series for 2025?
The year 2025 was a poignant one for music, marking the loss of several icons whose influence stretched across decades and genres. Sly Stone, the funk pioneer behind Sly and the Family Stone, left behind a revolutionary legacy that fused soul, rock, and social consciousness. Brian Wilson, the visionary force of the Beach Boys, passed as one of the pop's most innovative composers and producers. The world also said farewell to Connie Francis, whose voice defined the early pop era, and Roberta Flack, celebrated for her soulful, introspective performances. In conclusion, together, their departures closed chapters of musical history that helped define modern music itself.
Modern music, indeed. So, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. Well, Hunter connection, we move beyond tribute and into topology, charting the intricate circuitry of influence that radiated outward from Ian Hunter and reshaped the architecture of a modern rock. So, Mr. Mike, would you like to plug in something?
I appreciate the opportunity. Write the book, grow the business. Connect with me on LinkedIn, GMIC, the Dr. Digital Smith, PhD. Listen to the Dr. Digital podcast. Pick up a couple volumes I have on Amazon. That's On Track Ian Hunter, Burning America. And also listen to True Fans and support it if you love music.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Mike, the Dr. Digital, and please do listen to our other podcasts, Love Letters, Sex 101, Mental Health 101, and of course, Music 101, wherever you listen to your podcast. So, Mr. Mike, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, my friend. Until next time, Day of Soul.
Welcome, people. See you soon.